If you like audiobooks or audio shows, check out a free trial of Audible. Just click the link in the description.
This is Mindshock. I am your host, Bruce McGuire,
and Maxwell Powers.
and you are listening to Shadow People 2 Encounters with Shadow People. We're going to be going over some very, very creepy and insane Shadow People encounters for which you can judge the veracity of yourselves and judge whether or not these shadow people are real entities of some kind, either ghosts, demons, interdimensional travelers, or whatever they are. If you haven't listened to our first episode on shadow people, where we go over theories and scientific analysis of edge of the eye phenomena and other phenomenon associated with shadow people, who they are, where they came from, what do they want, check out that episode. And in this one, we will be going over encounters. If you like our podcast, you can donate to our PayPal. Just check the link in the description. And make sure you subscribe to the channel. Hit the bell for notifications. If you like the podcast, hit the like button. Feel free to add any thoughts, comments, questions, or whatever in the comments. And also feel free to share the video across social media platforms. You could also like our Facebook page and check us out on Twitter, Reddit, and Patreon. So, Maxwell, where are you with the whole shadow people phenomena? Do you have a theory, thought, anything on what they could be? What are they? Are they real? What's going on? Is it all in the mind of the observer?
Well, I first heard about shadow people when we did the first podcast. When I looked online, I was surprised how should I say, common or not common, but widespread it is, and people seeing shadow people all over the world. That was surprising to me. It was. Is it as big as Bigfoot?
I don't know. I mean, I
It
think
seems like yeah. It
Bigfoot's
just
definitely. Well, you just asked me a question. Can you let me answer before
uh,
interrupting you?
yeah, no, no. I was clarifying my question.
You don't. It's a simple question. So, I think it's not as popular. So, Bigfoot's so popular, people come forward more. With shadow people, it's possible that there are just as many, if not way more, encounters with shadow people that are simply either not being reported or the reports aren't being publicized to the scale that Bigfoot reports are because Bigfoot is so much more popular. There also aren't specific organizations like there's BFRO, there's other Bigfoot experts. I mean, the whole Bigfoot research field is so much bigger than shadow people. I mean, there's not that many shadow people experts. There aren't people going on shadow people hunting missions. There's no Finding Shadow People TV show. So, yeah, it's impossible to really say.
Yeah, and po- I think a lot of people are dismissing their experiences too. Like, it was probably just me. Oh, or you know what I mean? Like, I must have hit my head that caused that image to appear on
But
the
what if they
side.
didn't hit their head, though?
No, or something like that. I'm just saying, like, they're blaming it on they're trying to justify to themselves what they saw.
But
I
if you
guess
want
I
to,
don't
I
know.
mean, yes, I agree. But couldn't you also say that's the same thing for Bigfoot? Like, if you see something in the woods, you don't know exactly what it is. You're not gonna just randomly assume Bigfoot. Like, oh well, it's probably a bear or something.
Yeah, I guess get like disbelief, cognitive dissonance, that kind of thing.
Or just not even wanting to go there. Like, let's say somebody wouldn't have been cognitive dissonant and they would have identified Bigfoot, but they just don't want to go there, so they just dismiss it because they don't want the brain wandering in that direction. I mean, I can
Yeah,
assume. I'm assuming for shadow people, it could be similar as well. Other than the people that have like countless recurring encounters, or they see it out of the edge of their eye and they can also see it straight on. I mean, that's a little bit harder to deny than just flickering shadows in the edge of your eye because that's easy to dismiss. Like I
yeah,
said, my own experiences with edge of the eye phenomena, I think most of them can be explained by deer or just moving animals of relatively decent size that could explain it, So I'm not going to automatically jump it was humanoid. I've never really seen a humanoid figure. I don't recall that I've ever seen a humanoid figure in edge of the eye phenomena. But anyway, let's get into these encounters and we'll see. Are these people all lying? Are they saying what they believe to be the truth? Or are these just misidentified ghosts? All right, so here's one. When my daughter was between the ages of 3 and 8, she spoke of people with no face or figures of shadows. She would often wake me up telling me there is a man or a figure standing in her closet. The most frightening of stories. She woke me up to ask me if I heard the screams. She said there was a shadow who stood at her doorway and screamed at her, and then flew into my room and screamed at my wife and I. At this point, she was in uncontrollable sobs, unable to understand why I did not wake up. She is now 11 and the encounters have stopped. She refuses to speak of whatever was going on with her and makes light of my questions. That's pretty creepy.
Wow.
You know what?
Is she repressing that? That's crazy.
Possibly. Well, the other thing we need to talk about is, can we? Okay, so we're talking, he said between the ages of 3 to 8. I mean, that's 5 years of ongoing shadow people encounters. That's bizarre. We're not talking one instance here, but even in cases where it's only one instance, like let's examine this. If the kid is 3 or 4, I think it's possible they might still be separating dreams from reality. But once you're getting into the ages of, let's say, I'm not sure about 5, but let's say 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, are you really going to say that kid didn't realize it was a dream? At what point are you going to trust a child to understand the difference between a dream and reality?
Yeah, yeah, especially if you trust them and they're really intelligent, they do, well in school, or you can tell that they're cognitively efficient. Um,
Like
yeah.
Maxwell Powers efficient?
Yeah. Something like that.
Yo, that's a good point. Obviously, it's case by case. I mean, I don't want to seem rude to like 4 year olds or even 3 year olds. I mean, there's probably 3 or 4 year olds out there that can understand the difference between a dream, right, and reality. I don't know. I don't remember what it was like to be 3 or 4.
Yeah, yeah. When I used to coach soccer. There's a lot of smart kids out there
Do you still play soccer?
sometimes.
Is that how you amassed your fortune, other than the settlement with your ex-wife? You were like some pro footballer that like nobody knows about.
Yep.
Uh-oh, you're giving away all your secrets, Maxwell. Okay, so this actually triggered one of my memories. I believe I have seen a shadow person. If it wasn't just my imagination, I'm going to place this at around 10 or 11. So I wasn't 5. I would say 10 or 11. And I saw a figure in the closet, and what bothered me is that I didn't have, like, this wasn't a closet where I hung coats and hats or whatever. It was like it was like a shelf, like a lower shelf closet with like t-shirts that weren't hung on hangers. So it wasn't like I could have, on a closet where there's a hanging coat or a hanging sweatshirt that kind of could look like a figure. There was nothing in that closet that could look like a figure. It was just a plain back wall closet with stuff on the floor and on a top shelf. So there's nothing that I could have misidentified as a shadow. But to this point, I mean, I suppose it could be possible it was a dream, because if we're in between dreaming and waking, like if we're drowsy, I'm not talking if you hadn't fallen asleep yet, that's different. If you woke up from a nightmare and you're super sharp awake and then you see something, that's different. But if you're going in and out of sleep, I don't really remember, but I remember it disturbed me enough to go tell my parents, and their immediate response was just go back to sleep. It was a dream. But it was a spooky figure. It did not have red eyes. It was just a shadow. And I completely forgot about it until I just read this story here where she saw a figure standing in her closet. I wonder how many people see this and kind of, I mean, it disturbed me. It disturbed me pretty profound. I mean, I would say it was probably one of the worst nightmares ever. Maybe I repressed it because I completely forgot about it until now. And the figure wasn't even doing anything. It was just standing there. But it was creepy because there's a figure watching you. And it was big too. It wasn't like a small humanoid. It was a very big frame. I would even say probably more than 6 feet, probably 7 feet. It was taking up the whole closet. What do you
Did
think?
it
What do you think of
did it
my
move
memory,
around?
Maxwell? What?
Did it move around, or
No, that's the thing. It was so creepy because it was like it was standing still, but it wasn't perfectly 100% still. It was not that I observed it breathing, but it was almost like it was oscillating ever so slightly on the edge of observation.
did it have a top hat? I hear a lot about top
Yeah,
hat
no, this
shadow
was not.
people.
I don't think this was the Hat Man. The closest thing I could probably say is the outline of it. It seemed like it had some kind of really big coat of some kind, possibly a hat, but definitely not a top hat. It was
Huh.
kind of like some kind of. It was almost like those old Renaissance type clothing where they had like the really big collars.
I see.
But and that collar was so big it was like around the head, but it didn't seem like a hat necessarily.
I see. I see what you mean.
It
That's
was
creepy as
really weird.
fuck.
I mean, this is kind of crazy. I completely forgot
Yeah.
about this until I just read this. But
Yeah, that you just made an image in my brain. This is creepy as fuck, dude.
I know. Can you imagine being 10 or
With a big
11?
ass collar, or like almost past the ears and shit.
Yeah,
Like,
no, it was the collar must have been raising to the beyond the head in the back.
that's crazy.
Yeah, it was not just a regular little humanoid figure. It was a gigantic figure with like some I don't even want to necessarily say it was clothes, but it was just because it was just shadows. I want to say there was some slight outline of gray or silver. It wasn't just pure black. There was a tiny little bit of variance in the shadow. It was not a pure black figure.
Wow, that's crazy. That brings a lot of form into it. Because if it was just all black, then you can dismiss it as just a shadow. But you saw like silver lining.
A little tiny bit. So, like, we're talking again, it's almost like with its movement, it's almost imperceptible. So, it did not seem like it was completely 100% still. There was just a very, very slight oscillation. I don't want to say up and down like breathing, but it was almost like waving, like a stuttering video effect, but just so barely that it just barely observable, like almost not. And so the same thing with the three-dimensional quality, like just a tiny little edge of gray silver in the color of the tech, just a tiny little, almost imperceptible on the edge of perception.
Yeah, that's creepy as hell, dude.
Yeah, I was so scared. I remember actually being too scared to because the door to my room, I had to walk by the closet to get there. And it took me a few minutes to get brave enough just to exit the room because I was kind of scared of what it was going to do.
I just like as you explained that, I just because this chair is empty, like right next to me, and I was thinking if a shadow like the one of the shadow people like comes to you or you experience them at a certain location, I would guess that most people would be, if they can help it, not would avoid that location.
Oh, by the
So it
way,
would
just
be,
just so you know, I never saw it again.
oh really?
It
Is
was
that
just yeah, it was
and
just that one.
that seems to be like most people's experiences too, as far as like when I go on YouTube and stuff. Like they never really see the shadow people again after they experience it.
Well, you
That's
know
that's
what's also crazy? This that's making me think of this whole thing. I must have repressed that because when we did our other Shadow People podcast, like I was really thinking back because I do remember seeing moving figures out of the edge of my eye, usually while driving. So I think they're probably just deer or just. I mean, I don't know. There's no reason for me to believe they're even humanoid shadow people, but also they could be shadow animals. Who knows? People don't really talk about that. We touched upon that as well. But for this one, I really didn't remember it until this story triggered the memory because he's talking about his daughter seeing a figure standing in her closet. And that just took me way back. And I remember how scary it was. I must have repressed it. How many people do you think are repressing memories of seeing shadow people or other paranormal phenomena, not even intentionally? Because it's not like I was 4 or 5. I mean, I was definitely older, and I think that's why my parents kind of brushed it off because I was not like a little
oh
4 year old.
wait, you told your parents about it?
Yeah, weren't you paying attention?
I didn't say that. I mean, I didn't hear that part.
I
I
just
didn't
said,
hear that part.
yeah, I was so
No, I mean,
scared.
I know
Yeah,
that I know that you said it now, but that's why I'm asking.
when I gave my initial account, I ran to my parents' bedroom and I told them that there was a figure in my closet. And they told me it's just a dream, go back to sleep. They didn't even care because I woke them up because I wasn't a little kid. Like I wasn't 4 or 5. I mean, I must have been, I'm guessing maybe 10. Maybe not about 10. So maybe between 9 and 11, maybe 10. I was not super young. I remember I was a little bit older. And I don't even remember going back to the room or going back to sleep that night. My memory is I saw this figure with this weird collar or big clothing of some kind. It took me if I had to guess, probably between 5 and even 10 minutes to get the courage just to walk past the closet to get out of the room to get to my parents' room because I was so scared of what it was going to do. And I don't remember, the last thing I remember from that night is my parents said, go back to your room. It's just a dream. I don't really remember going back to my room or going back to sleep. That's kind of creepy. Like, what happened after I went back to my room? But like I said, I never saw it ever again, and I don't remember ever seeing it before either because it was a very distinct figure. It wasn't just an outline of a humanoid two-dimensional black shadow. That's not what it was. So I don't even know if this was a shadow person. Does this qualify as a shadow person?
Yeah, I guess so. What did you have sleep paralysis that you remember of? No.
No, I only remember having sleep paralysis once, and
I
I
have
was
I have
already
a
an adult.
question. I have a question about the sleep paralysis thing. Do most people experience it with like eyes open, like, or do they just stay asleep and they're kind of
I believe,
conscious?
I think
They're
both.
consciously awake.
I think both because I remember when I had it, I remember I was dreaming, but it was weird. I don't know if I just thought I was dreaming, but I couldn't move in the dream either. And then I opened my eyes and I still couldn't move. So I had it at the both at the same time. So I assume either most people have it that way or one or the other. I don't think eyes open because it's one region of the brain can't communicate to send signals to move to other with the another region of the brain. So I'm not sure. I mean, that is kind of weird because your eyelids would have to open. I don't know. That's weird. That's pretty weird. But yeah, I had it with both. I only remember having it that one time, maybe one other time, but no, that had nothing to. I'd never had sleep paralysis as a kid, as far as I can remember. So anyway, that's my account. Do you think I'm lying to you, Maxwell?
I never considered that.
I'm trying to think back on whether could I tell if I was dreaming or not. So if I was dreaming, I'm dreaming that I'm laying there looking at my closet. I don't know. That's kind of a weird dream. I don't remember ever having a dream where I'm laying in bed dreaming, or the dream is me laying in bed looking at my room the way the room is. I don't know. I don't remember ever having a dream like that. Do you?
No. And I'm also thinking about like these theories about like they're feeding off like the fear energy and stuff.
Yeah.
I'm thinking if people, it might be good for people to dismiss it as their imagination. They're like, and it makes if they do exist as an entity, then they wouldn't visit you
Well,
because you just ignored them.
you just brought up a very interesting point. Is that why believers always talk about their stories and non-believers have have no stories because they don't think it's real, even if it is? That's a
Yeah,
good
something like that. And I
that's a
mean,
good point.
they disbelieve it.
That's one of the skeptics' main claims is how come only people who believe in ghosts see ghosts? Even though that's not true, there's people who never believed in ghosts and then seeing the ghost made them a believer, so that's not true either. But that I mean that's an interesting point. I mean, we go back to even demons. If how come demons only visit drug users or whatever? Demons must be fake. Or the demons are real because the drug addicts are in such negative states of consciousness they're easier to prey upon. So yeah, there's quite a few explanations. But so what do you think? What do you think about my account?
That's some scary shit.
Yeah, I'm glad that never happened again. That was weird.
Yeah, I mean, I think
Actually, you know what? You know,
I think it might be even scarier. Well, actually, no, I can't say that because when you're a kid, you're like
You
everything
know,
is just a lot scarier.
this is making me remember a lot of things. I think after that night, I might have actually slept. I might have actually added a baseball bat to the to the side of my bed that I could grab because I remember. I think that that might have prompted me to do that.
Yes, that's funny.
Yeah, that's some
Well,
spooky. Yeah,
like,
that's spooky.
well, well, let me ask you this because I'm thinking about it. Would it be scarier or probably just as scary to an adult than it is to a child?
I don't know. I don't
Because
know. I'm not sure. Do children?
if I see, no,
I don't think so.
I guess I can manage my own like fear now. Like if I witness like a shadow people tonight or something, actually I'd be scared shit. I don't know,
Well,
but I guess
here's the thing though. If you're a child, like I don't know that it's a shadow person. Like I think I was thinking it was some kind of either a person dressed weirdly. I guess that's what I was thinking. I don't know. But I'm a child. Like, what am I going to do to defend myself? If I was an adult and I thought it was a real person, I mean, if they're unarmed or even if they're armed, I mean, yeah, you could fight, you can run away, you could do something about it. If you're a defenseless child, I mean, your only option really is to run. And if it's near the door, like, what are you going to do? I would think it's a lot scarier because as a child, you're more helpless. As an adult, like, even if they have a weapon, you can still fight to some degree. Because it's not like I was thinking it was a ghost or a paranormal entity. I don't remember thinking that. I remember thinking it was just it was an actual human in the closet, and I thought that was creepy. Obviously,
Wait, you didn't check it out? Like you didn't like get close to it? Like you just went back to bed and just decided like,
well,
it's probably.
as I said, I don't remember what I did after I went to tell my parents. I was laying in bed when I saw it. Then it took me some time to muster up the courage to exit the room because I had to dart past the closet where it was.
You might remember what happened tonight as the day goes on. Your like subconscious will bring it up.
I mean, I guess I must have just gone back to bed and gone to sleep. Maybe I trusted my parents and didn't even look in the closet and just went to sleep. Or maybe I just closed the closet door without looking in it because I was too scared to see. I don't know. I'm just thinking of hypotheticals. But again, like I said, I never saw it again. So I also don't remember. Maybe if I always kept the door closed since then, it'd be really creepy if it was there the whole time, but I just never saw it again because I always kept the door closed after that.
Dude, I wouldn't enter that room if I kind of suspected that somebody's in there. I'd be like, I'd probably leave the house or
Well,
something.
you know what else is weird? At night, especially as a child, your mentality is so different. During the daytime, like you could be brave. You're like, oh yeah, it's probably nothing. Who cares? But then when nighttime comes around, it gets all scary. All right, let's move on with these other people's encounters. So, typing this is stirring up emotions, but F it. I grew up in an old brownstone house in Brooklyn, New York. It was a two-story with a large squeaky staircase and a creepy basement. The house had a lot of spiritual activity. One day in particular is burned into my memory and still gets me to this day. It was in the middle of the afternoon. Sun was shining. I was running around the house misbehaving with my little brother. I like his accurate portrayal. I was 8, he was 5. We were playing spies, and I was making my way up the stairs. As I'm walking up the stairs, I can see the entrance to my bedroom. As I was looking into my room, a tall shadow being stepped into the doorway, looked straight at me, then went back into my bedroom. It was a dark shadow in the shape of a human standing upright and walking. It had a wavy quality, like I was looking at a heat wave. I was so terrified, I tried to scream, but my voice didn't even come out. I ran downstairs as fast as I could to the living room where the rest of my family was. I was crying hysterically, explaining to my mother exactly what I saw. She had me say some prayers and tried to assure me it was gone. I did not want to go back into my own room. I had difficulties falling asleep. I had nightmares about it. The entire experience lasted a few seconds, but I replayed it in my head hundreds of times. When I got older and the internet became a thing, I looked up shadow beings. It felt good learning about other people's experiences, and I finally felt like I was not alone. I never talk about this incident, but I will never forget. You know what's weird? He describes this wavy quality like a heat wave. I would say that's sort of what I saw, except like on the edge of imperception. So like just really, really difficult to ascertain that it was wavy or slightly moving. But well, he said it was upright and walking. So, and he said it was a dark shadow like a human. So I don't know, not quite what I saw, but
Yeah, I saw this video. I don't know if it's real or like fake, but it looked really good because the camera was shaking the whole time because they were walking with it, and the image was in exactly the same place. So if it was fake, it was really good. But this particular shadow people video, the image or the shadow person was it wasn't dark. It was kind of like the image that it was portrayed in Predator when they become invisible.
okay,
Like
yep.
that kind of like wavy, mirrory type
Invisibility
image.
cloak, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Like, that's what it looked like in the video, and it was kind of scary too. Uh, um yeah, so he saw it and he looked at it. Did you see that? And then like they kept on walking and it came in front of them and they started running and they dropped the camera. But I don't know. It looked I mean, if, even man, if it was fake, it was really well done. Like just are there a lot of videos out there? Like, because I have only seen one.
I haven't really seen any good ones. I think most of them are probably fake. I don't know. Again, if it's on the edge of the spectrum of what you can see, like maybe you might need film cameras to capture. Like we talked about this in our Ghost podcast, or even Bigfoot. If Bigfoot is some kind of interdimensional or spiritual creature on a different wavelength, you might not be able to capture it digitally. Some people say that, it's like the classic all the equipment starts malfunctioning when it's time to record the paranormal activity. But what if you used analog film cameras? How would that malfunction if it's not digital? With all this electromagnetic frequency, who knows how that interacts with different things? I find that kind of silly how skeptics like to say that this is all fake because the camera equipment just coincidentally starts malfunctioning. What if it's not coincidentally? What if the proof of the paranormal activity is the malfunctioning of digital equipment? I mean, I'm not saying it is, but if it is, that's not a disproof, that's a proof. But the other thing that this story made me think, how many parents just completely dismiss these dismiss these hysterical children having these encounters, not just with shadow people, but any paranormal phenomena. The parent is automatically going to say overactive imagination. What if it's not an overactive imagination? Like, it's obviously between cognitive dissonance and just all these other factors that parents don't want to even entertain the possibility of what the child is saying is true. It could also be a boy who cried wolf situation. I mean, a lot of times what kids say is just either over exaggerated, not accurate. It could be imagination. But what are the percentages? Is it 90-10? Is it 10-90? Is it 50-50? I mean, obviously every kid is different, but are we really going to say 100% of all hysterical children reporting on some kind of phenomena are just have an overactive imagination? It seems kind of silly to say that. What do you think?
Yeah, could be right. I don't know.
Did you pay attention to what I said?
Yeah, like the kids, like like these scientists thinking like these kids are having an overactive imagination, but you're saying that I don't know. It's there's I don't know. I forgot what you said.
I said how when hysterical children like I did, like when I was scared telling my parents, there's this figure in my closet, they immediately dismissed it. So, how many children, hysterical children, come to their parents with certain accounts of whatever, paranormal activity or humanoid figures? They're just automatically dismissed as overactive imaginations. I was just saying, is it kind of
I see what you mean. I see what you mean. There must be.
is it kind of silly to dismiss 100% of hysterical children?
Right, right. Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, if there must be a lot out there. There must be. Yeah, that's funny because because you repressed your memory. How many repressed memories are out there about shadow people from like kids when they were kids? There must be millions.
It's pretty spooky to think about, yeah. All right, let's go on to another account. I rarely am one to make a big deal of things, let alone tell anyone weird, unbelievable stuff. But there are some experiences that I recently had in a house we lived in for a little under a year. We moved into this house in October of 2001. The first 2 or 3 months, all was fine. Then, on or around the first of the year, 2002, my 4 year old, then 3, would wake up in the middle of the night, absolutely terrified, saying there was a monster in her room. Now, of course, I brushed this off as childhood nightmare. But then in late February, I started waking up in the middle of the night with a feeling of someone staring at me. Note my daughter stopped getting up. Upon looking in the general vicinity of where this feeling was coming from, I would briefly see a shadowy black and gray apparition that would be gone as soon as my eyes focused. This would give me the chills when I would go to sleep. This occurred 2 to 3 times a week for months. The same nightly scenario, I'd wake up, focus and gone, or I'd wake up, see it, and then turned the TV and it was gone. Only once did my fiance actually see the apparition too. I think it was in June. She woke me up in the middle of the night and said she saw a faceless child standing next to her about 3 feet from the side of the bed. As soon as she looked at the face, it was gone. I then got up telling her it must have been my daughter. I went into her room and she is fast asleep. Other than this, she never saw anything again. The most frightful experience with it was in late August when I woke out of a dead sleep again and did the routine, except this time it didn't disappear. It stayed floating in the corner of the room. It was a swirling black cloud with some gray in it. That's kind of creepy. Probably 4 to 5 feet long and 1.5 to 2 feet wide. I will honestly say I have not felt that kind of fear ever in my life. It felt like there was pure evil in the room. I couldn't move, but I was able to nudge my fiance and say, "Look, there it is, that thing I keep seeing." With that, she rolled over, and only after she turned over did it disappear. We moved out in late September, and I have not been woken up since. I did ask a few people of the history of this house, but to no one's recollection did anyone ever meet their fate on that ground. Like I said, normally I wouldn't take the time to write this. However, I feel as though I needed to get it off my chest. P.S. The corner this always appeared in was a corner where I had a crucifix hanging on the wall. We left that behind as well to ensure we wouldn't be followed. You know what's really weird? Normally, any kind of demonic entities don't like crucifixes. Isn't this weird?
Yeah, that is weird. It actually hung out there. Maybe it's like maybe it's trying to block it, or maybe I don't know, whatever.
This is pretty bizarre too because well, how much stock do you put into the sensation where you feel someone is watching you, and how often is that wrong?
Um, I don't know. With people, it's like I'm 90% correct. Like if someone's looking at me,
How do you know
I
you're
don't
not
know.
100%? Because if you glance at them and they glance away, how do you know they weren't looking at you and your feeling was true?
That could be true too. I don't know.
Or it could have been someone else looking at you, and the person you thought you who was looking at you was reading or doing something else. So you thought your feeling was wrong. But I would state that's an instinct. So I would say your instincts aren't technically wrong because there's an evolutionary purpose to that instinct. Because if your prey is watching you to attack you, something's got to trigger that instinct in your brain to be aware that somebody's watching you, and you need to be aware to either, for fight or flight, for survival. So are all these people with overactive imaginations, what's causing them to look and see a figure if they get that sensation that someone is watching them?
Yeah, I don't know.
Also, is this shadow person simply a ghost, and are shadow people tied to certain locations? Because it seemed like this person only had these issues in a house that they lived in for less than a year, and all of the people in the house witnessed it. That's also a plus because if you're not the only one, because if you're going crazy, no one else is seeing it. Okay, I mean, I still wouldn't dismiss it right off the bat, but it's definitely more credible when other people in the house also see it. What do you think?
Um, hey, can you repeat that question?
If you're the only person living in that, like this particular entity seemed to be linked to the house, right?
Okay.
Because this person said they only had these encounters in this specific house that they lived in for less than a year. What I was saying is that if you're the only one living in a house who is seeing this particular entity, it's definitely more credible when everyone who's living in the house is also seeing it.
Oh, I see what you mean. Yeah. So, and what's your point with that?
So that makes that account more credible if everybody who lived there saw
Uh,
it.
oh, I see what you mean. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Because like more witnesses, more people coming up and risking their reputations. Yeah, I guess so.
Okay, this one's really creepy. My name is Gabriella, and I live in Munich, Germany. Since I moved to a small village, I've experienced this phenomenon. I just found out about it, what it is called, or that it even has a name, and it is common only recently. I used to think I was crazy, as some days I just couldn't sleep, like if something was bugging me, like an annoying mosquito, but different. I will feel a cold wind, my windows are always closed. It's very cold at night here, and I also feel some kind of pressure or paralyzed sensation. I will just shake and wake up, and I will see directly across the room that figure. It did sometimes stink, sometimes not. There might be months, even 7 or 8, in which nothing happens, and then it comes back again. Doesn't seem to follow a pattern. Can happen during the day, even. That is more rare. I also feel or hear like whispers in my ear. How creepy is that?
Yeah, that whisper shit's fucking like crazier than seeing shadow. Cause yeah, that's messed up.
I mean, if you really feel it exactly like a person whispering in the ear, like if it's unmistakable, yes. If it's just, I don't know, auditory hallucinations, I don't know. This story, it kind of, do we need to examine timelines? Because how strange is that? It just manifests just randomly, months on and off, sometimes 8 months, nothing. Like, how do we explain the timeline on this?
Yeah, I don't know.
And also the odor. So she's saying there's like a foul stench, a stink associated with this entity. Sometimes yes, sometimes no. If it's the same figure, would you argue that it should always have the stench if it's the same entity or not?
Yeah, yeah, I don't know.
No thoughts at all?
Well, I don't know if I should like. I don't know if I mean if it's the same stench. I mean,
No, sometimes there is no stench and sometimes there's a stench.
oh,
But she's saying it's the same figure.
oh, so she's okay. She's like she's getting a little confused because of the inconsistency
She
with
doesn't
the
seem
stench.
confused. She's just stating her
Ah, I see.
report. I'm asking you, what do you think of that? How, if it's the same figure, why does it sometimes stink and sometimes not?
Uh, yeah, I don't know what
According
to
to
say
her
about
account.
that.
What?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what to say about that.
No thoughts at all?
Well, it's then l- like I don't know. I mean, there must have been something that she missed, or if there's nothing in the room to make it stink. I mean, I don't know. I don't know what to say.
Nothing in the room. What are you talking about the room? She's talking about this entity that sometimes when it appears, there's a foul stench. Obviously,
Oh,
that stench
oh,
wasn't there.
it only it opens. It happens in conjunction with the appearance of the image.
Yes. How did you not get that?
No, I mean, well, if you, I don't know. It could be just, I don't know what she's thinking. Maybe it was like she thought the first time was coincidental, but I guess
Okay, it's
not.
kind of
And
like how, when some people see ghosts, sometimes they associate a certain stench with the ghost. You
yeah,
never heard of that? You never heard of that?
nah. But I've like people get cold and then they see a ghost.
Yeah, sometimes there's also a smell associated with ghosts. So she's saying there was a smell associated with this shadow person, but only sometimes. Sometimes it would appear with a stench, sometimes without. My question is, what could account for the inconsistency in the accompanying odor?
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, that was a long way to say I don't know. Okay, so let's move on to another one. I saw what I would best describe as a shadow person when I was around 8 years old. Me and a friend always had these Star Wars battles with action figures in his basement. That sounds like fun. We would split and set up our bases, basically just hiding figures all over the place. One day, while I was in the main room hiding one of my figures in preparation for battle, I looked over to where the room turned a corner and noticed what appeared to be a hazy, dark silhouette of a man standing just around the corner looking at me. There were no features, just a human shape. Not sure what I was looking at, I assumed it was my friend messing with me. So I asked him what he was doing. From behind me, I hear, "Who are you talking to?" I jumped around, startled to see my friend behind me in the back room, sitting on the floor. I quickly looked back to where the figure was, but nothing was there. Freaked out, I run into the room with my friend and hide. It was probably the scariest thing I've ever experienced. And even writing this is making the hair stand up on my neck and my eyes tear up remembering what this thing looked like. I'm still friends with that kid to this day and have stayed in that house countless times with no other incidents. However, I recently told his much older brother, the basement was his room long before this incident, about it. He then told me about his late night experiences with doors opening on their own, scratching on the walls, and strange shadows passing by. This is weird. It's like a combination of shadow people and ghost haunting.
Yeah,
That's a pretty
that's
creepy
crazy.
story. You know the other thing consistent about all of these accounts is the intense fear that's associated with the shadow person. Because I don't, when I see out of the corner of my eye, like shadow figures again while driving or wherever, there's no overwhelming dread or fear accompanied with it. In
Ah, I see.
some of these accounts, they're saying it's just this overwhelming dread and fear, which I did get when I spotted the shadow person in my closet. But I don't know if I would explain it as the worst fear ever. I mean, I mean, I was really, really scared, but I mean, as a kid, I've gotten that scared before. So I don't know. Or maybe some of these people that have these shadow people accounts, they've never had any kind of terrifying encounter in their life. They've never been in a fight or anything, any kind of situation where they felt terrible fear. So maybe this was the worst fear they ever had. I don't know. What do you think about that story?
Spooky.
That's all you got?
That's all I got for now.
All right, let's move on. When I was younger, I lived in a ranch style home with my mom and grandma. My mom and I had chose to have our rooms in the basement. See, that does not seem like a good choice for a lot of these people. Hers in the back corner bedroom of the basement and mine in a sectioned off area of the main living room recreational area. Her bedroom was connected both to her bathroom and the main living area. The bathroom door being in her room and the door leading to the living area being catty corner with a door that led to her bathroom from the main living area. One night in particular, I remember playing with my Legos. I was probably 9 or 10 when I happened to look up at my mom's bedroom door. As I looked through the door, it became more and more apparent that there was something there. It had no facial features and was nothing more than the silhouette of a small person with really swooshy hair. After about a minute of looking at the shadow, it dashed into the bathroom via the door directly connecting the bathroom and bedroom. In disbelief, I continued playing with my Legos when I felt something staring at me. As I looked up, I couldn't believe my eyes. The same shadow was now standing directly in the bathroom doorway. Now I know it had no face, much less eyes, but it was staring, watching, perhaps even waiting. I almost immediately sprinted into my mom's room, at which point I sprinted up the stairs, tears of fear running down my face. After that incident, I could never be alone in that basement at night, and my bedroom was moved to one of the spare bedrooms upstairs. I wish I could say that was the last of my experiences, but alas, it is not. The same shadow person followed me to several different houses, including the one I'm in now. That last line makes it slightly more unbelievable. And then also, so her mother also had the room in the basement. She lived in the home with her grandma. So did her mother not see anything? It'd be interesting to see if the mother could corroborate any of these sightings. But if it's just the kid, I don't know. Or she's being haunted by some weird demon that follows her from house to house. But if that's the case, why did it start there? That's also kind of weird. Why did it not start in the previous house? A lot of questions, Maxwell. A lot of questions here. What do you think?
Yeah, yeah, that's yeah. Wait, what? Why do you say? Why do you say it's a little bit less believable that it followed? It's the same in the same house. Like,
I didn't say it was less believable that it was in the same house. I'm saying the whole account. She's saying that the shadow person followed her to several different houses, including the one she's in now. I mean, that's not enough to go on. It just the phrasing of that threw me off a little bit, made it just, just personally to me, it made it sound less believable. However, if it didn't follow her to, I just have more questions. Like I said, did the mom see the shadow person in the basement? Because the mom had her bedroom permanently in the basement. After this incident, the daughter moved her bedroom upstairs. So it'd be interesting if the mother had any shadow person encounters. Also, why did she not have any encounters before moving to that grandmother's house? And did she have shadow person in every single house she moved to afterwards, or only some of the houses she moved to afterwards? These are all questions that need to be answered.
I see. Are there accounts where one person sees it for a long time and the other person doesn't?
I mean, I'm sure it's kind of like ghosts. So, I mean, there's all sorts of accounts. Why would there not be?
Yeah, I'm just curious. I mean, I'm trying to see the I'm trying to understand the phenomena, what the purpose is of the shadow people.
Well,
If you know,
it's kind of like the same thing with ghosts. You have all sorts of accounts. In some accounts, other people living in the house can see the ghost. In other accounts, it's only one person ever that sees it for whatever reasons. And then also we have to, again, we can't dismiss the possibility that maybe other members in the household did see it, but they thought it was their imagination and they didn't want to feed into the other person sightings. So they really did see it, but they said they didn't. All right, let's move on. I am usually not one to talk about my situation as it happened about 14 years ago, and anyone that I have gone out of my way to share this with immediately put a lot of discredit upon the topic. My spouse and close friends have always been the most intrigued. I only had one occurrence that I recall the most. Any others did not have as much substance behind it as this one did. When I was 14, I was sharing the basement recreation area with my stepbrother at the time. My parents had spent time building me a room in the basement at my request, but lo and behold, I spent most of the time out on the playroom or whatever you wanted to call it. I didn't start sleeping in my room until I was probably 16. However, this instance further confirmed why I didn't. It was between 2 and 4 a.m. I don't recall the exact time, but I had originally fallen asleep on the floor next to the futon my stepbrother was sleeping on. He faced the wall and was heavily snoring to boot. I had woken up and couldn't fall directly back to sleep, so I tossed and turned while the ambience of the TV kept spreading around the basement. Out of nowhere, I became completely stiff and unable to move my entire body, but my neck and head. At this point, feet pointed to the wall and the TV behind me. I started to look around because I had become immediately filled with anxiety and fear. I was thinking of this being sleep paralysis at the time until the next step took place. I laid there in silence, heavy snoring from my left. It felt as if someone or something was sitting on my body, restraining me by the shoulders, which, due to claustrophobia issues, freaked me out. I heard a very faint voice at first in the distance. Josh, are you there? I know you are there. Eyes peeled wide open, trying to diagnose me being crazy at this point, it then spoke again. Josh, can you hear me? I know you can hear me. Come to your bedroom. I continued to try and ignore as I felt I was about to puke as I was becoming really scared. In a much louder, gruffer voice, it spoke to me again. Josh, I know you can hear me. Come to your bedroom. As if the biggest weight was off my body, I was immediately able to move and I sat up in a split second and rose to my feet. The voice continued to call my name and demand my presence in my room. Like any unoriginal horror movie, I was pleading with my brain to not do it, but stupid me decided to make way to the bedroom. The door always remained shut, and as I put my hand on the doorknob, I hear one more time, Josh, are you coming? Open the door. As I opened the door, I had a small basement window, at the time big enough to sneak out of the house, parallel to the doorway. As I slowly creaked open the door in a cold sweat, there was what appeared to be a dim lit, yellow eye shapes in the window, in the shape of some sort of dark figure staring deep into my soul. Wide-eyed and terrified, I looked up and was locked on for about 30 seconds. They got brighter and became dim and then repeated. I slammed the door immediately and bolted to the other end of the basement for the light and proceeded to rock back and forth because there was no explanation. My stepbrother woke up in a panic as I was petrified. We went back in the room together and turned the light on and nothing was there. Nothing was outside as we went and checked further. He stayed up with me for a bit until I fell back asleep, and nothing like that occurred again. I cannot advise whom, why, where, and what, but it has left the biggest impact on me to this day. I know the difference between dreaming and being in an altered state of mind, but this was the most real I have ever felt behind a paranormal episode. That voice makes my body tingle and hair on my arms raise every time I think about it. I feel good knowing that I am not completely alone in this type of thing, and all I can do is hold on to the memory as nothing has been explained or uncovered otherwise. Is that one scary?
Yeah, that's pretty scary.
That made me think of all of when he mentioned the horror movies and people doing stuff they shouldn't be doing. What if there's an explanation for that? What if these demonic entities or any of these evil negative forces, they make these whispers to your brain compelling you to do things against your will? So things that could get you killed or put in danger, it's not really you who's doing it. You're being guided, suggested, manipulated by some kind of negative demonic force.
Man, I would hate to experience that. Just being like controlled.
Would that explain it to? I mean, it's not like 100% control. It's more of like a guiding suggestion, but it's powerful. Like you have to fight really hard to fight it, and most people can't, or certain people can't, and they end up walking to their doom.
Sick.
Yeah, that's rough. All right, let's move on to another one. My experiences have all been pretty good, I guess. I've lived with shadow people all my life and see them every so often. First time I was 10, I woke up in the middle of the night and looked at my door, and there was a shadow person standing there in the hallway. I used to sleep with the door open, and I could clearly see the outline of it. It was static, though. The outline was clear but shifted, like there was interference in what I was seeing. I could tell I was being watched and looked at, but there were no facial features, just a black mass in the shape of a person. The figure darted to the left of the doorframe and entered the living room. I could hear its footsteps, oddly enough. It came back, then stopped in my doorway again before going down the hall towards my parents' room. I got up to look, and of course, nothing. I sleep with my door closed now. I never saw it again in that house. I heard it, though, walking through the house many times. It wasn't until I moved into my current place that I saw them again, this time much more frequently. I see them every few weeks or so. They don't bother me, I don't bother them. We coexist.
Well, that's nice. I mean, it's not like she's getting nightmares every night.
Well, as we discussed in our first Shadow People episode, I mean, if there's evil shadow people, there might be good shadow people, and there might be neutral shadow people who are just maybe oscillating between realities or paranormal or parallel dimensions. Because a lot of these accounts have the same similarities, that wavy or interference static type visual, as if they're just on the edge of perception or they're moving in and out of dimensions. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I love that. I love that theory. Yeah, I'd like to see a movie where like people actually oscillate between dimensions. That would be really cool.
That would make
Uh,
a good movie.
yeah, and like and like I think you mentioned this before. We as people could be oscillating the other dimensions, and they see us as the ghost.
That's a crazy one, right?
Yeah, it's like really interesting because the ghosts that we were seeing, they're probably like just like regular people in another dimension. They just oscillate between dimensions. I listened to actually the video that I told you about, like they saw this shadow people in the forest, and they put a clip of Stephen Hawking talking about like interdimension yeah, it was really interesting. I didn't know he was like I don't know much about Stephen Hawking, but he believes in that reality or that
A
theory.
lot of physicists believe in infinite parallel dimensions, or a great number of, or an unknown amount of parallel dimensions. Yeah, it's pretty crazy. Yeah, it's definitely. I mean, I don't want to go black and white
Yeah,
fallacy.
I should start reading like some of the Stephen Hawking stuff. He's pretty interesting. He's got some interesting.
There's a lot of conspiracies about him as well.
I heard about that too. But still, I think his books should be a good read.
But as I was saying, I don't think we should fall for any black and white fallacies. I think in certain cases, there's certain oscillation between dimensions. But if the ghost knows that you're there or you're watching, or the ghost has some kind of evil intention or good intention, then it's not just a neutral person like being visible between dimensions. I mean, that could account for some of the cases, but I never meant that as a sweeping generalization that all of these things are simply people catching visuals in between dimensions. But all right, let's get a little crazier. The thing about them is that they don't move the way people say ghosts move, sort of unaware of their surroundings. They move around like people for the most part, as if they're really interacting with the world. The 3 times I've seen what I can only call a shadow person, I've been keenly aware that they knew I saw them. That's the creepiest part, that they seem to know who you are and where they are, that they're intelligent. What do you think about that?
That's very interesting.
You know, another thought that I just got, what if shadow people are time travelers gone wrong? Like if they're going back or forward in time and they cause some kind of weird rip in the space-time continuum and their matter got all messed up, so they're just like a shadow.
Oh man,
That's pretty crazy, right?
yeah, poor guys.
Hey, when you're messing with the unknown, you don't know what's going to happen. All right, here's another one. My only experience with anything like this was after a particularly vivid dream in which someone was whispering what I could only describe as secrets into my ear. When I awoke, I looked directly across my bedroom and saw a shadow darker than darkness, and it turned and looked at me. When I called out, it then turned and ran straight into the wall. And I'm sure I saw a kind of splash of darkness like dissipating smoke as it disappeared. I absolutely believe that whatever it was had been whispering into my ear before I woke up, and that I had awakened before he thought I would. I also just feel I know it was a he. That's a pretty crazy story. Like he wasn't supposed to
Did,
see
did
him.
did you share like she shared the secrets, like what the content of the secret?
He only said I can only describe them as secrets. So perhaps it was just inaudible or indiscernible words. I mean, maybe the connotation or the tone made him think that they were secrets because I don't know. But it seems the point was that this entity didn't want to be seen or didn't think he would be seen. So that's a little different than some of these other ones. So this one, I mean, that's kind of bizarre. What if that was his future self telling him some secrets?
Yeah,
It's kind of weird. I mean, this doesn't quite match the MO of most normal shadow people encounters. He's not really feeding off his fear. It seems like he really wanted to relay some kind of information and then got interrupted by the guy waking up. Who knows? All right, let's go on to another one. For years, one shadow person, seemed male in retrospect, used to stand by my, and in parentheses, they have mom's bed, and essentially would force me to go to sleep. He would interrupt me reading books by basically being so distracting and then eventually intimidating. I had to leave the light on or pull the covers over my head to fall asleep. His shape was kind of an adult size oval with diffuse edges, and he wouldn't really move. He only ever really occupied 2 spots next to the bed. That one's kind of bizarre. This entity is forcing them to go to sleep instead of waking them up in a state of fear. What do you think about that one?
yes, yeah, that's crazy.
You know, the other thing that made me think of, why are kids or even adults, why is there an instinct to pull the covers over your head? Have you ever done that?
I don't remember myself doing that, but
I remember
I,
doing that.
I, I actually, you know what? Now that I think of it like that, I do remember what I used to do. I used to just like stare out. Like I wouldn't pull the covers. I'd just be like looking out. I wouldn't. I would be more scared if I don't see anything.
Yeah, I mean, when I saw the shadow person, I didn't pull the covers over my head. I was just too scared to move. But in other cases, I do remember just in general, like when scared to pull the covers over your head. What is that instinct based off of? So something can't see you? If it's a demonic entity of some kind and it's getting energy or strength from the fear of you seeing it, then the instinct of pulling the covers up so that you can't see it, it can't see you, it can't feed off your fear as much. Is that where that comes from?
It's possible. I don't
That's
know.
kind of weird. The motivations of the subconscious. Very, very weird. All right, let's move on to the next one. I've encountered a few in my life. They are demons or jinn. They are not good. I'm a sensitive empath and I feel death. I have never been approached by a good shadow person. They put on a facade to get you to let your guard down if you have one. The most frightening experience I have had was about 3 months ago. I was visiting my hometown and staying at my mother's house. I was in the back bedroom, lying in bed, and turned the TV off for the night. The door was closed and the room was pitch black. I felt and heard someone in my room. I honestly thought it was my brother looking for something he might have left in my room, and he didn't want to wake me. But I turned and looked towards the door and saw a tall black figure. It was so dark I could see it in the pitch black. I asked who it was with no answer. I asked what it wanted, and it moved closer. I felt such fear and a weight. I've become desensitized to spirits, so that was odd. It wanted me to be afraid. I yelled as loud as I could, "Go away, leave me alone." It stayed. I got up and picked up my phone and turned on the flashlight. When the light filled the room, the black figure was gone and my door was cracked open. I grabbed my rosary that was blessed and an eagle feather and prayed till I fell asleep. I never pray. I still don't know what it wanted, but now it is masking itself as a little boy, about 7, maybe 8, with black hair and sad eyes. I've told him to leave, but he still peeks around corners at me. Don't encourage them. Tell them to go away. That's one of the creepiest stories I've ever read. Any thoughts on that one?
Nah, nah, they're all creepy to me.
Here, yeah, but these are pretty unique. This one is an empath who's communicated with spirits before. He describes himself as he or she describes themselves as desensitized to spirits. So we're dealing with someone who's not necessarily a disbeliever. We're dealing with someone who believes in ghosts and spirits, and there's a clear distinction with this shadow entity, which they describe as a demon or a jinn, but with the ability to masquerade as a spirit, looking for some kind of sympathy. The other thing that was really interesting is that this person who's an empath, for whatever reason, they felt that the entity wanted them to be afraid. So that kind of matches up the theory that these are some kind of demonic evil entities that feed off your fear and negative energy. This person even actually had the distinct feeling that the shadow person wanted them to be afraid. What does that tell you?
Yeah, it's just yeah, I don't know, man. Some people are scared, some people are not. It's interesting how people experience the shadow people differently.
Yeah, the other thing that pops out at me is, what if this little boy who's 7 or 8, what if that's not the shadow person masquerading as this figure for sympathy, just to gain entrance to emotions? What if this is a real spirit that's separate from the shadow entity? That's why I don't know. A lot of these black and white fallacies, they're problematic for me, because are we going to believe that all ghosts are negative demonic demons, even the ghosts that have saved people's lives? Because there are stories of good ghosts or even laughing ghosts. Not many, but they're out there. So are we going to say it's so problematic to just hasty generalize and black and white fallacy all of these concepts to say that shadow people can't be good or neutral? Because it seems that in certain cases where the shadow people are not or don't appear to give off the feeling that they know that you can see them or that they can see you, that kind of points to some kind of neutral interdimensional glitching or whatnot. Whereas in other cases where they want you to feel fear and feed off your energy, that's another thing. And then we have people with encounters that claim that these shadow people or ghosts have helped them in some way. So we have all kinds of different accounts. So in our next episode, we'll be going into even more shadow people accounts, the most unique accounts, the ones that don't match any theories, and we will continue the discussion on what shadow people are, what do they want, and how to deal with them. We hope you enjoyed another episode of the Mindshock podcast. If you like our podcast, you can donate to our PayPal. Just check the link in the description. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel. And if you like the video, hit the like button and feel free to share it across social media. Also, make sure to like our Facebook page. And you can also check us out on Twitter, Reddit, and Patreon. This is Bruce McGuire signing off.
And Maxwell Powers.
Catch you guys next time.